Hey there, I'm Dr. Jill Wener. I'm a physician, meditation teacher, tapping instructor, author, soon to be author, and aspiring anti-racist, which requires constant self-evaluation and attention and learning. And I am so excited to have Dr. Nicole Swiner here with me today. She is a family physician. She's the owner of Swiner Publishing Company, which is actually publishing my book that's coming out next week. And she is a powerhouse in her own right and such an incredible human and role model and all the things. So Nicole, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. And powerhouse is a big word.
I think I don't use the word lightly, but you seem to be doing everything and you're doing it amazingly well. So I'm very inspired by all the work that you do. And still practicing medicine. She's like still actually like, oh, I'm going to see some patients and then I'll do this podcast interview. And then I'm also going to be this, you have like candles, scented candles from partnerships, all these incredible things that just seem like all sorts of fun and very influential. So the first question I'd like to ask you, and I've started asking this of everyone, I didn't used to do this, but what does anti-racism mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. So it is anti-racism to me just isn't about the talk. It's about the action behind addressing those things that we need to address that we usually quietly, awkwardly shy away from, especially when those things are being spoken by loved ones and friends and colleagues that you don't want to upset and offend. But like actively pursuing leveling the playing field so we get rid of all these insane stereotypes and obstructions and obstacles in the way of us seeing each other the same. That's what I see anti-racism as.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And everybody's different. Everybody's definition is different. But that's the beauty of this work is that it's nuanced and there's always something to learn. I mean, honestly, I leave every podcast interview just like, just so lit up and inspired and wondering how, just mind blown at how much there is to learn. So you are a Black business owner, and that's something that we kind of hear a lot about, the importance of supporting Black-owned businesses. You are publishing my book. I chose you intentionally because I know you're good at what you do, and also because my book is about anti-racism. So I wanted to put my money where my mouth is, literally and figuratively. Can you talk about the importance of Black-owned businesses and what that journey's been like for you? Because we're both doctors, so we don't like start off as business owners.
Yeah, that's right. And I never wanted to own a business, to be honest with you. I wanted to be the foot soldier in primary care and have somebody else take care of that other stuff and just take care of the patients. That's all I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But, God saw fit that this would be the position I'd be in. And by mistake, almost, it seemed like the opportunity dropped in our laps, myself and my partner, Dr. Chillicurry, to own the practice from a hospital. And, we, jumped in not knowing much about it, hired some people that were smarter than us with money and business owning and all that stuff. And we've learned the ropes. So, we turned 10 as a private practice this past October.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, I know the time. I mean, you blink and like time just like flies. But so Dr. Chillicurry is of Indian descent. He was born and raised in India. He's an older gentleman, and I call him the Gandhi of our world because he is phenomenal. But so being a Black and Brown owned private practice has been very interesting. We were privileged, and as a doctor, I admit we are privileged. We have different privileges than people do, than some people do that are not in the medical field or don't have the opportunities to make the money that we make in ownership and all that stuff. But it was an interesting transition. We felt like the small fries, because we were inheriting this practice from a hospital practice. And so the guys in the ivory tower with the white, with the suits, were owning all the things, and we were trying to inherit that from them. And there was a struggle in the beginning. I really don't think the hospital thought that we would be successful for many reasons. I don't know whether color had anything to do with that or not, but as the lowly primary care physicians, I don't think they thought that we would succeed the way that we did. And so just having to be confident, particularly as one of the few women in the room, trying to take this practice away from the hospital, was very interesting too. And allies have been tremendously important, allies both in the room, allies as lawyers. My husband as a male, also had to step in and show his strength and his support. And I think there was one particular instance where one of the suits in the room wanted to be intimidating in some way towards me when it came to this business dealing that we were doing. So much so that my husband felt the need to show up and show his face and shake his hand very sternly to show that, yes, she is a woman, but she's not by herself, Yeah. She's very capable. So don't try to play her. Right. So having people to support you in that way, of all colors and genders, et cetera, is definitely helpful. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting transition, but we have no regrets. No regrets.
That's incredible. So, okay, so you own your own practice, and then you have other businesses as well. So the publishing company, how did that get started? And I've been a part of your publishing circle for the last 6 months or so. What is your mission, do you think, in your publishing business?
I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. No, ultimately, so really, and things, God is funny, because I had zero plans of, number one, being a business owner, zero plans of owning more than one business, and zero plans of writing, like as a job. So I'll try to make the story short. So was in private practice, had, inherited this practice and gained this practice, and now I'm a business owner. And so had to learn the ropes with that. Was recently married by the time we became private practice owners, had my first of two kids. So coming back to work, trying to manage all these things, balance, juggle all these balls in the air, I literally passed out at work, literally hit the floor, rock bottom. And from that, learned that, okay, clearly I was doing too much, not sleeping, not taking care of myself. I'm all about putting everybody first and taking care of all the people and breastfeeding and not sleeping and all that stuff. So I was doing too much, stressed out. And that's when I learned about being a superwoman and what that meant, and started reading about it, because all my friends were wagging their fingers at me saying, you need to take a break and stop being, doing all these things for other people. So with that, I thought, what, this fits, this is my journey. So I want to share that journey with others. I'm going to write about it. So I started writing about and journaling and blogging about what it is to be a superwoman, with the Superwoman complex. And from that, decided to put some blogs into a book, because then I started joining some groups, where we have probably come into contact, some other physician groups, entrepreneur groups that where my colleagues were writing these books and expanding their brands and being able to tell their story. After the second book that I published on the Superwoman complex, which I did via Amazon, self-published, after the second time, I got more and more people asking me, how did you do it? And can you teach me? And I've always wanted to finish this book and never knew how to. And I said, I could show people how to do this. So that's essentially how it was born. Literally, it's people coming in and asking me, how did you do it? And I said, I can teach you. And that's where Swiner Publishing was born. And my ultimate goal eventually is to be able to pull away more and more from the clinical side of medicine, which has become more and more complicated. I still get some joy out of it, but I definitely want to do it differently and do it less, or do it more remotely, like here doing telemedicine, et cetera. But Swiner Publishing, I think, will be the thing that will help me to pull out of clinical medicine a little bit more, hopefully maybe even leave a legacy, something my children might want to carry on once they're older. So those are my two primary goals with it.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And I love how these things in life just kind of unfold and
happen.
Your intuition every step
leads
to such magical opportunities, or they can, and that's a privileged thing to say, probably. And it's interesting also to hear you acknowledge your own privilege. And I think for people listening, it's important that like privilege isn't just skin color, although the skin color is something that you hear about a lot. Being able-bodied is a privilege. Education is a privilege. So that's incredible. And so you're giving voice, you're allowing people to share their voices that didn't have the means to, or the know-how or the motivation to put out there on their own. But that's funny. It reminds me of when you and I first started working together. I had wanted to turn my conscious anti-racism curriculum. And at the time it was just me. I hadn't collaborated with Maisha yet. And I wrote to you, but I was like taking this 12-week hiatus from my part-time job. And I was like, I have no funds. I'm going to just do this on my own. And then I got my first edits from this, freelance editor I had worked with, and they were good edits, but I like fully froze because they were a lot of edits and I was going to have to do actual work. And COVID happened. And I remember you reaching back out and you were like, hey, Jill, how's that book coming along? And that for me was such a pivotal moment. I hadn't signed on with you. I mean, you were just like,
no.
And we had interacted a little bit on Facebook, but we weren't like besties. We weren't in, there's no formal arrangement or anything. And you reached back out and it was exactly what I needed. And it was a little tough lovey, but I love tough love. So for me, it was the best thing ever. And it got me moving again.
Yeah.
I said something like, a book like this is more important than ever, don't you think? Or something.
Yeah, I was like, this is your moment. I said, this is it. This is the time. Black Lives Matter movement was happening right as COVID was really popping off. I said, we need to hear from allies like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the time in between, I think before you had reached back out, Maisha and I, Dr. Maisha Claiborne and I, who you've also worked with in the past and I think are friendly with as well, we've teamed up and she's collaborating on the book with me. We're co-authors and with the whole conscious anti-racism movement. So it's been really, I'm glad we waited, because if we hadn't waited, it would have just been a book by Jill, the white girl, and it wouldn't have been as powerful. I don't think it would have been as impactful, and it would have just been my perspective, which is something, but it's so much more robust. And of course there's collaboration with Dr. Ann Kennard and Janet Raftis, who's another wonderful woman I know. So there's lots of great collaboration in the book. And
Ann is phenomenal. I've worked with her too. We published her book too.
She's great. She's great. So how does it make you feel to be putting work out there that has social relevance or that has potentially a social impact? How does that resonate with your values?
I am so excited. I mean, it's almost like, you don't want to say who of your children is your favorite. I've enjoyed all the books that we have published, starting from the beginning to now, but I am so excited about this book for many reasons. Number one, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, this moment right now in history, in our nation, in our community, I mean, there are so many things happening right now. I mean, the election just happening. I mean, like, this is your moment, Jill. This is your moment. This is the book that needs to be written, that we all need to be talking about. It doesn't matter whether you're a physician or not. We all need to be talking about racism and getting along and getting over all these horrible feelings that we've had since the dawning of our nation and the world. But I'm like, I get chills thinking about the impact that this book will have now and forevermore, because people going back, just think, our kids and grandkids in history class are going to be learning everything about 2020. And just think of how important hopefully your book will be at the top of the reading list, right? For kids going into college 20 years from now. So, I think you have wonderful things to say. Clearly, Maisha Claiborne and Ann Kennard, because I know them personally, I know the wonderful content, and I've seen the manuscript. I know the wonderful content that they provide. But just knowing the things that you're talking about and how I mean, it's going to shock some people. And I like that. I like that in a good way. So I'm excited about it. So I think it's so important for this to be released right now. This is definitely, you know, I don't know what your faith system is, but I feel like the universe, God, Mother Nature, everybody, you know, this is the time for a book such as this to happen.
Yeah. And it thank you for saying all those wonderful things. And I think what I love about this conscious anti-racism movement, what we talk about is like, this is uncomfortable AF. Like it is uncomfortable, and that's good, you know. And a lot of people are talking about. I'm not the only one to talk about this at all. And there's so many other incredible books out there. And you know, I have this like perfectionist white supremacy culture mentality of like, if I just finish all the books that I want to read, then I will be fixed. And it's an ongoing journey. But what this book and our online course, what they do is they give you tools, and by you, I mean non-Black people, because even people of color who aren't Black can still, even Black people are steeped in white supremacy culture. The audience for this book is not Black people, although I think they can benefit from the techniques in it. But how to lean into that discomfort and learn from it so that they can move forward into the anti-racist space in a way that's not draining energy, that's bringing energy, and that's doing it in a like a safe, non judgmental and non-triggering way. Because if you go into an anti-racist space and you haven't done the internal work, this book isn't just about the internal work, but if you haven't done it and you go in there thinking you're all everything because you're the white person who knows, or the Indian person, or the, you know, any ethnicity, it can be very damaging, and it can make it all about whiteness, which we've got plenty of that. So I think that's what's cool about it, and using all these different techniques that I've learned over time, and that Maisha is an expert in. It's just this perfect synergy of and it's a stepwise progression. So it allows people to kind of like go on the journey and flail in a way that is, I mean, there's flailing. Anti-racist work is, I think flail is probably one of the first. It's like I've never actually said this, you know, using the word flail, but it's a flail for a long time. And it may always be a bit of a flail, but it's like, how do you manage the flail and not let that shut you down and stop you from doing what needs to be done?
In a safe space. In
a way that like you're doing it. Because there's questions about the word safe space, because a lot of people think it's problematic because white people really want to be safe. And so they're like, I have to be safe no matter what. That's actually one of the symptoms that we talk about. Symptoms of culture. But for white people to do the work internally when it feels safe, I think absolutely. When we go, and then when we want to go out into the world, we want to make sure that we're not insisting that we as white people or non-Black people are made to feel safe. Because that's not what's important in the anti-racist space. It's not about white people. It is in terms of shifting and joining, but it's not about us at all. It's about contributing to the movement that is well underway and very well, you know, we're not helping, we're contributing and amplifying. But yeah, when you're doing the internal work, it's nice to have the skills that don't make you want to like writhe around in shame and yeah, there's going to be tears and there's going to be shame, but how do you get through that? So it's been quite a journey, and it's been so great to have you there, and the women. You have a writing mastermind, so like a group that meets, and you provide all this great support. I'm talking more than you are, and I'm interviewing.
No, I love it. Yes, got it.
Can you talk about because a lot of your not all of your clients, but a lot of them are Black authors. Can you talk about the importance of getting their voices out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned before, part of what we've been able to do is hopefully help those who don't know how to go about it, or have never had the opportunity, or don't have the know-how of getting the words that are in their heart and their brain on paper and out to the world. You know, I'm a family doc, and you know, we're all, you know, a don't deliver babies now, but I used to help with labor and delivery and all that. And I do see this as a birthing process. This is a continuation of my medical stuff because it's very, you know, I'm a mental health advisor throughout the process. I'm a, like I said, a tough love. I have that maternal push that I help people with. And I try to give them the knowledge that I have, or at least connect them to different people and resources that they wouldn't have had before.
Yeah.
So I'm proud that I get to help people in that way. And particularly for those of color who never envisioned, like, you know, what do you mean my words are important enough for other people to hear? I'm like, yes, your words are important and people need to hear that. And then, you know, for a lot of the people, I've done a lot of poetry books, or I've gotten a lot of poets recently. So we released, during the pandemic, we've released one poetry book from a Black woman. I'm working on 2 other ones now. Mm-hmm. It clearly has been therapeutic and will be therapeutic for them to get this stuff, you know, out to hopefully help other people and help heal whatever wounds they've been holding on to. So it's a lot. It's emotional, it's fun, it's exciting, it's all of those things.
Yeah, and people are listening. People are craving, I think, Black voices, the Black perspective now in a way that I don't think people were probably open to. And I mean, you know, like white people wanting to learn more and understand more and be better and do better, I think, and not always knowing what to do. And the great answer is always look to the work of Black folks who have always been putting wonderful content out there and have always had incredible things to say and teach, but have not always been received. Incredible. How can people, well, what other projects are you up to? Because it's funny because talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about the No Superwoman thing, because I called you a powerhouse, and maybe I should say you're no powerhouse. Maybe I should so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's a really important message, you know, race or non-race, that you put out there.
Yeah. So my No Superwoman Life, I call it a lifestyle brand now, because I try to live the world of, well, we used to say work-life balance. Now it's more work-life integration.
Oh, I like that.
Where, you know, you're trying to, particularly as strong women, you know, that the strong women that we have all these things we want to do, and all these people we take care of, and then we forget about ourselves. But the No Superwoman movement is about self-care. It's about putting yourself first, which sounds selfish, but, you know, should be, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we can't take care of all these other people and things that we want to take care of and do. So I, on social media, have created, you know, merchandise and events that we'll do around self-care, particularly for working women, moms. Not everyone has children, but working moms, entrepreneurs, you know, primarily of color, but, you know, everyone can be involved with self-care and taking better care of yourself. And it's not just about getting your hair done, nails done, and buying a new outfit. It's about, do I hate my job? Do I, you know, are my partner and I connecting the way I need to connect to feel loved? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I, you know, do I use aromatherapy? You know, you mentioned some of the candles that I put out. I have 2 candles in collaboration with 2 companies that I developed. And this is on my website. I have an online store, shameless plug. But
I want to shamelessly plug you, and I want you to plug yourself, and I'll ask you in a moment, like, how people can find you. So yeah, that all is going to be in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah. But yeah, no, my message and I show, you know, on Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, I have, I like to show, you know, pictures of me and my girls hanging out, or me and hubby, you know, pre-pandemic, me and hubby on date night, or me and the kids running around, or me doing telemedicine and all that. Look, hubby is actually in it. So speaking of work-life integration, here's
Nice.
I'm sorry. I'm busting up the whole thing. I'm sorry.
That's great. We're very happy to have you, because you're also a part of the publishing.
This is Jill.
Hey.
Conscious Antiracism.
Hey, Jill. How are you?
Oh, yeah, Rick and I have been emailing.
Yes. So it's good to actually meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you too. It's good to meet you too.
Yeah, so integration where hubby's working from home, got 2 virtual schoolers upstairs. I mean, it's like, you know, how do you create that space for yourself? So I try to role model that. I try to give you some good, helpful tips and advice, and, you know, a candle, a Superwoman sleep serum that has some essential oils in it, you know, how I feel good about self-care. I try to share that with the world. So that's where the brand comes from.
I love that. So it's like, stop expecting women to be superwomen. They just get to be who they are is enough.
That's right.
I love that so much. So you're no powerhouse.
Well, you know,
So you're still a powerhouse.
I'll accept the powerhouse, you know.
I will still think of you as that. So how can people find you? I know you're on the social medias. So what are the best way people can follow you and learn about you? And if they're thinking about publishing a book, how can they reach out? All the things.
Yeah, so I'm at Doc Swiner on all social media. Instagram and Facebook are my 2 favorite, but I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter and all that. My website is docswiner.com, and the online store is bit.ly/the Doc Swiner store, all one word. So the best way is to, you know, shoot me a DM, you know, an inbox message, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. The website also has an email, a way that you can contact us via email, but most people get at me via social media in some way, and so, you know, that's probably my favorite way to communicate nowadays.
Okay, yeah, I love your post too. It's just like, I'm like, that life looks fun.
Yeah,
It feels authentic. It feels like that's what you're actually doing.
we're actually doing. I'm, you know, trying to run around and play and have cocktails and get sleep, and then worry about virtual school and taking care of husband.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's so much. It's like ongoing. It's nonstop. So I love your whole message. So Dr. Swiner, thank you so much for joining me and for shepherding me through this book process, and for agreeing to chat with me, and for the lovely things that you said about the book, which is being released November 30th.
November 30th, you guys, please go support this book. Buy 1 million copies for yourself and your family members, so y'all can talk about it at the Christmas table.
I know, yes, and this is good. This is good, actually, because it will give you the tools, because there's a lot in there about communication.
Mm-hmm.
So this will give you the tools to have those. I mean, we may or may not be I'm not having any in-person family dinners.
Right, get less than 10 people in a small gathering with masks.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, your crazy uncle, Tommy, who makes the crazy comments, this will give you the like wherewithal and the tools to like keep it together, and then have something intelligent to say, and not after the fact be like, I should have said something.
Yep. Especially after this election.
Especially after this election. And especially because people think that the work is like, oh, cool, Biden won, Trump's out.
Mm-mm.
This is the beginning. This is
now is where the work starts.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Like, we can take that like insane amount of stress and fear that Trump brought, that he added to, but there is still an insane amount of stress and fear and work that needs to be done. So absolutely. Support the book. Nicole, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week.
You too.